I hope you're upside down to get loopy, because today I have a corkscrewed up list for you. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how terrible was that?
Let's talk about amusement parks, like rides, it rides in the dark. Rides right here, it rides all over, but mostly coasters, mostly coasters. We'll talk about all kind of things, but mostly coasters.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Mario. This is the channel all about amusement park type stuff, but mostly coasters. And in today's top 10 list, we're going to be looking at some of my favorite inversions, narrowing it down to just 10 out of the 344 inversions that I have experienced. But enough blabbering, let's get into the list. And we have to start things off with the most iconic inversion of all time, the vertical loop. But not just any vertical loop, specifically from Schwarzkopf, the innovator of the modern vertical loop. Now, a revolution at Six Flags Magic Mountain was the first modern vertical loop, and all of Schwarzkopf's loops that I have experienced are great, but if I had to narrow it down to just one of their loops, Scorpion at Busch Gardens Tampa is definitely one of the better ones out there. Now, what makes this loop and others like it so great? Of course, the positive G-forces. Due to the circular nature of this vertical loop, you're delivered a healthy helping of positive G-forces both in the entrance and the exit of the element. And while this may be the most simple inversion of all time, you gotta love being pushed down towards the ground, experiencing forces you otherwise could not. Next up, we have a play on the classic loop, the inclined loop on Rougarou at Cedar Point. This is exactly what it sounds like. It is a vertical loop, but just tilted on its side. Rougarou's specific inclined loop is by far my favorite because of how tight and forceful it is. Much like number 10 on this list, you get a large dose of positive G-forces pushing you down in your seat, but in addition to that, you whip out of the element. And having the loop not be perfectly vertical just adds another level of disorientation and fun. Now, I know a lot of people don't really care for Rougarou, but I thoroughly enjoy this element. In contrast, number 8 on this list is well loved by almost everybody. We have the death roll on Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa. This is an inversion that twists you 360 degrees upside down while traveling downwards, and it is such a phenomenal sensation in multiple different ways. Traversing the element, you float up out of your seat while also maintaining prominent lateral G-forces and progressively speeding up throughout the element. Feeling your sense of speed increase while you are being thrown around side to side as well as up is considerably aggressive and disorienting. Oh my god, I totally forgot to mention those hand and head choppers are insane too. Another benefit of this coaster is that it is the newest coaster on the list, so it is so smooth and easy to enjoy the intensity of the element. This is just one of the many great features on a fantastic coaster. Heading over to the West Coast now for number 7, we have the inline twist on Superman Ultimate Flight at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. And this ranking applies to pretty much all the other Skyrocket 2 models, although Superman in particular does not have those flappy comfort collars on the restraints to distract you from any of the enjoyment of the element. Speaking of what makes this inversion enjoyable, it is the phenomenal hang time. You dangle out of your seat for multiple seconds, all while being 150 feet in the air. The whole thing feels like it is slow motion, which is also a nice contrast to the otherwise fast-paced ride. And yes, these coasters are mass-produced, but I could never complain about that slow motion, high-flying roll in the sky. Coming in at number 6, we have another vertical loop, this time one of the largest in the world, on Full Throttle at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Just like the last coaster, this is another Premier Rides launch coaster. This inversion also has great hang time while also taking you over 100 feet in the air. That being said, I think this hang time is more fun delivered as a loop because every time I ride this coaster, it feels like it will not make it over the top of the loop, and you're going to roll back right into the station where you launch from. It definitely also seems like the hang time lasts longer, and the whole element itself is just so grandiose and enjoyable. Not to mention, look at it. It looks phenomenal off-ride as well. It is such an imposing structure, and it gets a well-deserved spot on the list. Returning back down to the ground at number 5, we have the JoJo roll on Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. Now this coaster is full of fantastic inversions, with a respectable honorable mention being its first loop, as well as that 0G stall about halfway through the ride. But this roll takes the cake in my opinion, because the hang time is nearly unmatched. While the previous 2 coasters on this list are great, the restraint and train design of Copperhead Strike makes it so incredibly easy to enjoy because your upper body is so unrestricted that you dangle out of your seat like nothing else. And while this inversion is not high up in the sky like the others, being low to the ground is an exciting experience in and of itself because it feels like your head is just inches away from scraping the ground. The fact that this inversion happens right after you're dispatched out of the station is also a statement for the rest of the ride to come. If you like prolonged, wonky, slow motion hang time, this is definitely the inversion for you. But now coming into number 4, where we have undoubtedly the most unique inversion on this list, the inclined inline twist on Flash Vertical Velocity at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. And this one may be cheating a little bit because you experience this one inversion multiple times throughout the ride, but it is just so fantastic that I had to include it. The forces of this element are quite varied depending on where you sit. In the front, you spin through the twist very aggressively on the full launches, and experiencing that backwards is even more insane. In the middle, which is my personal favorite place to sit, you get great sustained hang time on the weak launches where you don't make it all the way through the roll, and you get a fun floating sensation as you go through on the full launches. Experiencing this inversion at an angle is an added bonus, and all around this is just a great, unique inversion. Next up at number 3, we got a pretzel loop, but no, it is not Tatsu's. I picked Manta's pretzel loop at SeaWorld Orlando. Now, while the scale of Tatsu's pretzel loop is intimidating to even the most seasoned of coaster enthusiasts, I do unfortunately find it a little too rough and uncomfortable at times, so that's why I prefer Manta's by just a tad due to the comfort. But you can't go wrong with any pretzel loop, as that nose dive heading straight down head first towards the ground is absolutely bonkers. Getting those G-forces while you're on your back feels like you're going to turn into a pancake, and coming out of the element straight up while you're still trying to process what's happening to you is all a nice little intensity-filled package. This is just such an unconventional way of flipping you upside down, and it is undoubtedly one of the craziest coaster experiences out there. The penultimate pick on this list may seem a little bit basic to some, but at number 2 we have the 0G roll on Incredible Hulk at Islands of Adventure. Now yes, this inversion has been around for decades now, but the B&M 0G rolls hold up as some of the most aggressive elements to this day. And honestly, most B&M 0G rolls could be in this spot, especially Kumba, but Hulk has to be my favorite. It comes right after that launch out of the tunnel, so you have the light change adding to the excitement of the ride. You experience it so high up off of the ground. You get an incredible feeling of weightlessness while violently whipping around 360 degrees, and at the end of the element is an over 100-foot drop back towards the ground. Hulk is a fantastic coaster through and through. There is a reason that it still gets the ridership that it does. And while every inversion contributes to this world-class experience, there's no denying that that 0G roll is top notch. And we'll get to number 1 in just a second, but before we do that, I wanted to take a quick look at some honorable mentions. First up, we have Incredicoaster's Vertical Loop, which is definitely nothing special, but it was my first time going upside down on a roller coaster, so it is certainly special to me. Next is the Batwing element on Montu and Afterburn, which is technically 2 inversions. That's why I did not include it on this list. But saying this element is crazy would be an absolute understatement. You get phenomenal whip entering and exiting this part of the ride, and bone-crushing positive Gs at the bottom of it. And next is an inversion that really should be on the list, is the 0G stall, and it can be on any RMC that has one of these. They are all fantastic, and honestly, even Intamin has done a great job at implementing these into their coasters over the last few years. Traveling at such a high speed while upside down is definitely a superb experience. And even just hearing myself talking about it, I'm kind of kicking myself for not including it on the list, but I do just like the ones on the list more than this, though it is well deserving of an honorable mention. And lastly, we got the dive loop on El Loco at the Adventure Dome, which is definitely not on most people's radar, but it has fantastic hang time, great head choppers, and the lack of over-the-shoulder restraints makes this another great unrestricted hang time machine. And finally, for number 1, this may come as no surprise to some of you, but we have that famed Mosasaurus roll on Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure. This is without a doubt my favorite inversion. It is just such a complete package with an insane setting over the water. It is disorienting. You are traveling so fast through it. You have great lateral G-forces throwing you sideways. And my favorite part is freaking ejector airtime trying to throw you into the water. Yes, ejector airtime on an inversion. I didn't even know it was a thing. I really can't think of any other coaster that has that. The forces that this thing does to your body, it just gets me every single time. And then not to mention, an additional bonus is that it looks beautiful off-ride too. This is just such an intense inversion with so much to love about it, and it well deserves the number 1 spot as my favorite inversion. But with all that said, let me know some of your favorite inversions in the comments down below. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe and turn on notifications for more content like this. And until next time, this is the end of the video.